Alright, here we have a netting needle that's been loaded with some cordage from a previous video, a quickie gauge. This is a previous knitting needle, which is a little smaller, that I fashioned and stained, and its corresponding gauge. And here, more or less, is kind of the structure of, or the configuration of creating some netting. I've got a support line here, and then I create my meshes along the support line. I've got some natural example here. This is made of dog bane. This is just kind of real quick creating this net to get practice at creating the knots, and I was using this gauge to do so. Not very big, but just something to practice with. Here's a net that I made with some cordage that I had just around the house here, and this is a fairly big one, and it's just kind of fun to practice trying to get consistent with the meshing and to kind of work on these projects or these skills when you're doing nothing but watching television or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and explain to you as succinctly as I can on how to create netting. Here's an example of what you can do with the netting skill. You know, some primitive skills you can transfer to daily life. You don't necessarily need to be in a wilderness survival, ultra extreme situation to apply some of these ancient techniques and abilities. This is a little netting corner shelf that I made for my daughter to hold her stuffed animals. And again, instead of having to go to the store or come out of pocket to find some netting that would work in the color that she'd like, I was able to just find some pink cordage rope from the hardware store, and within about an hour's time I was able to make a triangular net. Before we begin, I'm going to set up the demo and explain a couple of things in a larger detail. I'm behind the camera, and I hope I don't bump it too much. There's a lot of handwork that is involved, so I'll do my best to not be too shaky with the camera. Right now, I've just taken this. I've taken a couple of wire hanger hooks, clipped them, and then bent them over and made the loop perpendicular to the hook. That's just because the cutting board that I'm on, I can hook onto the edges. Normally, if you were out and about outside, you'd probably, hook this around a tree with some cordage, or create a support line with the cordage from one post or one tree to another. But I'm not outside because it's a few degrees below zero outside today. So for this demo, I just went ahead and put together a couple of hooks. So to begin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of cordage here, and I'm going to start a leader loop here with my cordage. Make sure the ends are even, and then I'm just going to do a simple double or simple overhand knot with both standing ends here, or running ends, I should say. And I'm just going to come through here. There's a little bit of knot terminology there. Running ends and loops and bites and whatnot. And not computer bites, actually. Alright, so basically I want to create a configuration like this. Okay, so I'm going to hook this to the top of my cutting board, and that's going to be my leader line right there. Netting seems to be just a series of knots, and it's a special knot. It's a particular knot called a sheet bend, and I've got some smaller cordage so I could fit it on the shuttle. But I have some larger cordage here I want to explain in larger detail, so that I don't have a lot of control over the camera zoom and whatnot. So I've decided to break this up so that I can explain this in larger detail, and I'll go over it again. I want to create a bite. I'm going to kind of hold the bite here, and I want to take my running end and run it through this initial bend or bend in the cordage, and then I'm going to hold where they intersect together. I want to take my running end and run it around my hand or my thumb. I want it to go through this loop behind everything, like so, and then I want to pull this through the loop that went around my thumb. Okay? And cinch this together. This initially is a half hitch, and then as long as I keep the ends together and the initial loop around the half hitch, then it holds. So like so. Okay? So this is the main knot that we'll be using. There's a caveat here. So I'm going to undo this a little bit. If the initial loop isn't pinched solidly, either above or on the intersecting bites, this will slip down, this loop will slip down, and it will cinch on itself, creating basically a noose. And then you'll have uneven meshing that'll run throughout your net. Okay? So the proper way to do this and not get that phenomena is, one more time, and I'll repeat this a few times as through this demo, is this is my meshing. I take my running in, I run it through. I'm going to go ahead and hold the intersection here. I'm going to go over my thumb, through my initial loop here, up through the loop that went around my thumb. And then I want to cinch up above where I was pinching in the intersection. And that's the sheet bend that we'll be using for netting.